This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we are staged and ready to go. Anybody else that has a presentation have any questions? Tanya, are you all set?
I am all set. Thank you.
Fantastic. With that, I'm going to mute out myself and go fill my water glass, and I'll be back shortly.
All right. See you then.
All right, I'm back. And Greg, you might want to increase the size of your page. All the way up in the top right corner of your screen, see where you see the X and then right below it, a little hamburger menu?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing your mouse move, but it's in the top right corner, there's a little hamburger menu there. And if you click that, you should be able to increase screen size to make the print easier to read for people online.
Okay, so what do you mean by hamburger menu?
In the top, it's a bunch of lines,
Horizontal lines?
vertical lines. They're like
Oh,
in the
okay.
top corner of the screen you're showing, like, your browser.
Yeah.
Look just below the X in the top right corner at the 3 lines and click there.
And
I'm not seeing you do it. If I'm seeing your screen live, I should see that.
well,
3 dots, maybe.
I think I've got something on my screen here that's not the right thing.
What I'm seeing is the agenda.
Yeah, that's on the big screen.
Yeah, that's the one you're using. That's the one you're using to present. So do it on the big screen, not the Surface Pro.
Big screen? Well, that's
Yeah.
already pretty big.
Well, it is for you, but on our end, it's not as big. Over all the way to the right, all the way to the right, yeah. Now click there. Okay, see down where it says Zoom in the third box at the bottom. Down further. One more up. You just went past it. The bottom, yeah, Zoom right there. See where it says Zoom in that line right above the line? So just click the plus sign above that next to 100%.
Yeah, I don't see that.
I saw it. I saw it on your screen.
A3.
Click. Oh, probably the panel's in the way. Just slide the panel out of the way so you can see the side of your screen. So you know how to drag and drop. Just click on the top of that slide panel.
Yeah, I know how to drag and drop, but I'm not having much success getting it done. It doesn't want to.
All the way at the top, you should be able to do it in the frame, the top frame. If you click and hold and then slide. But it's not that important. I was just here. Yeah, that's. I just wanted to show you how to make the text bigger, make the page bigger.
Right. I get that, but
You were so close.
Yeah, I could see it on your screen. We all could, but that's because the panel that you see in the way doesn't show to viewers. It only shows to you.
yeah.
So if you can just slide that panel out of the way, you'll be able to do it.
Well, I can't slide it individually. It wants to be hooked to the one with the agenda showing.
No, not the whole window, just the go-to meeting panel. The one that's vertical and has all the go-to meeting controls in it.
Yeah, but I can't uncover it. I've got all the panel of the attendees and all that.
That's the one I'm talking about. That's the one to slide. So all the way at the top of that panel, just click and hold and then slide to your left, and you can move it off the side of the page and put it anywhere you want. Slide it
Yeah.
into the middle of the page.
I guess you can't see that when I do that, both panels go.
That's okay.
Huh. But
That's
you
what
know
we
what?
want.
We can
Yeah. Well,
We
people
can
can open
zoom.
it up on their end because it's on
I
the.
just
It's on.
zoomed mine.
Okay. Yeah, just do it on their own screens.
We can all do it on our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the link is on the website, so people can open it up even on their own computers if they want to do it that way.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right, Greg, I'm going to go on silent. We're at 129, so I'm just going to mute out, but I'm here on standby as needed for the rest of the meeting.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you'll be needed.
And good to hear your voice, Alta. Let's talk soon.
So I guess we'll just wait a little bit because we only have 8 people as far as I can tell. Hey, there's Alta.
We've got Alta, Monica Garcia, Bill Templin, Tanya, Matt Acco, and yourself and I.
Yeah. Well, we should see if we get a few more maybe.
Come on, Greg, all the important people are here.
Well, definitely one of them. I had more people say they were going to be here, but you never know about that. A lot of them that don't say anything show up, and a lot that say they will don't.
You know, Greg, I had to add this to my Outlook calendar. I don't know if there's a way for you to send out Outlook invites, but those are the best way to get it on my calendar, and I remember because I had to go in and create my own event invitation, so I almost forgot it myself.
Yeah, well, I think we could do that.
Did you get the invitation from Google Calendar?
I did not. I just got the email itself. So when it comes in, let's see. I got the one on last Friday, I think. And when that comes in, it just has all the details for the go-to meeting. And I think there's a calendar invite in there, but my Outlook doesn't recognize it, I don't believe.
Yeah, I'm not seeing you on our calendar list. I opened up the calendar on my other screen. So I'll collaborate with Greg and make sure we have everybody on there. That one goes out 2 weeks in advance, 1 week in advance, and like an hour in advance.
Oh, yeah, I never got any of those. So Greg must remove me from that list, Greg.
Boy, I would never remove you, Matt.
He reached out personally. He reached out personally.
The computer must have messed up.
That's right. That's the Russians. They've hacked us.
Most likely.
But we do have a lot more people coming in.
Yeah, we just got
And can I ask a question?
Sure.
The attendee list is disabled by the organizer.
Well, I think I'm an organizer, but I don't.
That's the you're talking about on the calendar.
No,
the
I'm
calendar,
looking at the go-to meeting. The go-to meeting. I can't see when I click on the participants. I can't see who's here.
Yeah, only organizers can see that. So Greg and I can see it. And we'll have a roster of who else attended automatically afterwards.
Okay.
If you need to see it while we're live, I can see if I can do that.
That's okay. It just would be helpful to keep track, but that's okay.
Yeah, and Greg keeps track, and we get a roster. And I just changed your setting. I'll see if you can see it now.
Oh yeah, it says Dylan has arrived.
There you go. So now you can see attendees.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and mute again, but I'm here.
Yeah, we probably have enough to get going now. So let's do. And let's see here. This is our quarterly ARBC meeting. And we have, well, let's just go ahead and do some self introductions. I'm Greg. I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm with two nonprofits, Dry Creek Conservancy and Valley Foothill Watersheds Collaborative. And this is this particular meeting is organized by Valley Foothill Watersheds Collaborative. It's an outgrowth of our previous stakeholder group, which was the American Basin Council of Watersheds. So if that doesn't confuse you, I could say some other stuff. So who else can we go with? How about Bob? Why don't we just go down the row I have here?
Sure. Bob Hollis. I work with a lot of people here today on websites, general technology, also working on several related grants, one with Department of Water Resources, the other with the EPA, working with Christine and KCB. And I'm generally available for any type of tech support needed for anything from GIS to websites to social media.
So I have a lot of that just say attendee. I don't have names, so I'm not sure how I queue people.
Yeah, you should be able to see those on your panel. If you stretch the top window down, or if you like, I can go across and just call people's names out.
Yeah, why don't you just do that?
Okay, I'm going to go in order as they appear on my screen, which is not alphabetical, unfortunately, for people to be ready. But just unmute when you're ready, speak your piece, and then mute, and we'll move on to the next person. So first up is Matt Acco.
Matt Acco, City of Roseville.
Welcome, Matt. Tanya Herrera, who will be one of our
Hi.
speakers today.
Hi, yes, Tanya Tabuki Herrera, Nevada Irrigation District.
Thank you, Tanya. Bill Templin.
Yeah, Bill Templin, Trout Unlimited, Saxia Chapter Trout Unlimited, and I'm with Alta on the Sacramento Area Creeks Council.
Good to hear from you, Bill. I've been so concerned about the trout streams up in the Desolation Wilderness where I live, and what's going to happen with this wildfire wish out to the trout and Silver Fork and everywhere else. Monica Garcia. Monica, you're muted. Not sure if you're aware. And we'll come back to you, Monica. Greg McKenzie.
Yeah, good afternoon. Greg McKenzie with the Placer County Conservation Program.
Wonderful. Welcome. Richard Mall.
Yeah, this is Rich Mall. I'm with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. I'm happy to be here. I'm working on fires, but I carved out some time to attend this today.
Thank you for the work on the fires. The Caldor fire, I was one of the first groups to be evacuated. We were out for about 2.5 weeks.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's a challenge.
Thank you. Yep. Christine Atkinson.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Atkinson. I'm with the DWR Riverine Stewardship Program.
Wonderful. Welcome and thank you for your work. Adam Laputz.
Hi, this is Adam Lappett, Central Valley Water Board. I am the Assistant Executive Officer in the Rancho Cordova office.
Great, thank you, and apologies in advance for name mispronunciations.
That's one of the best mispronunciations I've ever heard.
Great. And Monica Garcia, did I see your mic flash? Are you back with us? Monica?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we were just doing quick intros. Who are you with?
I'm with Regional Water Authority.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for being here with us today. Harry White.
Yes, hi. I'm a resident of the city of Roseville and a member of California Native Plant Society and the Sierra Club.
Fantastic. Great organizations. Cheryl Hoon.
Cheryl Hume with the City of Sacramento, Stormwater Program Manager.
Thank you. Welcome, Cheryl. Katie Conkle. Katie, you appeared to be unmuted, but didn't hear anything. You might not have your mic turned on, or if you're using a corded mic, it could be muted on the cord. But I will move on for the moment and we can come back to you. Brad Brewer. Brad, are you with us?
Thanks, Bob. This is Brad Brewer, District Manager with the Flood Control and Water Conservation District of Placer County.
Fantastic. A lot of Placer, both people here are Placer. Dylan Wood.
Good afternoon. This is Dylan Wood calling with California Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Thank you, Dylan. Lisa Moretti.
Hi, I'm Lisa Moretti, and I'm with the City of Sacramento Stormwater Program.
Welcome, Lisa. And coming back, Katie, did you get your mic issue sorted out? Not hearing anything. So Katie, if you intend to speak during the session at all, you might consider the phone dial-in option, which you can select in the GoToMeeting panel. And did I miss anybody? I'm not seeing anyone else. Is there anyone else who just called in and isn't showing on the screen?
You didn't call on me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alta.
That's okay. My audio is cutting in and out too, so I'm missing quite a bit. But I'm Altatura, Sacramento Area Creeks Council, and also Valley Foothill Watersheds Collaborative.
Thank you, Alta. And I'm going to turn off my camera now. If anybody else has issues that sound like bandwidth issues where it's a little garbly, you can turn off your cameras. And normally I recommend that just the person speaking has their camera on to avoid distractions. And I don't think Greg has one, so we'll be might be cameraless much of the day. But Greg, I'm going to turn it back over to you and go on mute. Let me know if you need me for anything.
Okay. All right. So we have several presentations today, and first of all, let's talk about the meeting notes from the last meeting. Is there anything that anybody has to say about those? Any corrections or additions? All right, so then we have two presentations, both of which are, things I've really been interested in hearing about, and I'm glad that we could get these two people to take the time for us. So let's get started with Hemp Hill Dam with Tanya Tabuki from Nevada Irrigation District. And after that, we'll have Placer County Conservation Plan with Greg McKenzie. So Tanya, are you ready to go?
I am ready to go, yes.
All right. And Tanya, you should see a prompt on your screen making you presenter.
Okay. I'm assuming everybody can see my screen now. Yep. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to speak about the Hemp Hill diversion structure, or the Hemp Hill Dam. A little bit more about me. Again, Tanya Tabuki Herrera. I've been with Nevada Irrigation District going on 16 years now. I do things from treated water design, raw water design, treated water hydraulic modeling. I've managed hydro projects, electrical projects, so big variety with the district. In my previous life, I worked for the city of Redwood City for about 5 years, where I did treated water design, CIP planning, and skate parks and and other play parks too. So, so I have a pretty decent background with managing projects that are outside my wheelhouse, I should say. So a little bit about our project. The existing hemp hill diversion structure is located within Auburn Ravine. The dam itself is a concrete dam that's about 8 feet high and 60 feet wide. Over the years, it's been repaired multiple times. During the irrigation season, we actually raise the dam about 3 feet with flash boards. These are redwood boards, so that we could back up the water into our Hemp Hill Canal and provide irrigation water to customers off that canal. The dam has been identified for a long time as a barrier to both year-round resident fish as well as, and I'm going to mess up saying this, adromenous fish migration. So our project, what we envision is that the complete project will remove the dam, construct a rock ramp passage in the same location. We'll also install some fish screening at the Hemp Hill Canal intake. And we'll have to modify our canal because we'll actually be lowering the grade a little bit. We'll have to modify our canal either through grading, lining, or piping up to the first service. And when we're all said and done, we'll end up providing some erosion control measures and bank stabilization to improve the ravine in the area that we do construction. Here we go. There we go. So here's a picture of the Hemp Hill Dam. This is during non-irrigation season. Our irrigation season runs mid-April through October 14th. That's when we put those flashboards in. So this picture here was taken off season, and so you can just see portions of the dam as well as our head structure. So I spoke a little bit about our history of needing repairs. We've had several flood events. One flood event actually went around each of our head structures, causing considerable damage, causing siltation in this photo. We've had other repairs where we've actually had to fill in with grout because we're finding voids in the dam itself. This photo here in the middle is actually siltation in our canal as a result of a storm event. So part of the project goal too is also getting us outside of the ravine in terms of operation. So our operation after we have the rough-and ramp completed will just solely be within the actual Hemp Hill Canal. So what are we seeking? We're looking at really a complex fish passage design. We have to consider the fish passage design criteria. We need to look at fish conservation and the type of species within Auburn Ravine and their life cycle. We're looking to put in a natural-like fish passage. And then because of the years in which we've been impounding water, we want to make sure that since we're opening that up, we want to make sure we put in erosion control measures and bank stabilization, stuff that's going to look really natural for Auburn Ravine. So we're really early on in the process here. We've done multiple repairs, lots of studies. We've had various meetings. A lot of this actually predates my involvement, but some of the key items that we did develop from all that history was the public's interest in the project. We very much understand the interest in removing these barriers within Auburn Ravine. We've gotten a great understanding of the ravine habitat, and then we've also developed a pretty good hydraulic review of the ravine with our structure, and we'll continue to look at that throughout the design process. If you're not aware, we did complete environmental review on our project. So the project alternatives, we had a series of project alternatives we took a look at equal level. So this roughen ramp that we selected was actually the environmentally superior project, and that was the direction from the board to go forward with. So I'd like to say something about now that, in my opinion, I think that the district has really good momentum on this project. We have a really good interest of getting it completed. We're really on the track of implementing a successful project with partnerships, and really getting something that we hope would be successful in not only removing that fish barrier, but also being able to maintain the same level of service to the folks that get irrigation water off the Hemphill Canal. So the roughen ramp, this is kind of our project concept that we reviewed in the environmental document. It's about 180 feet long. What we'll do is we'll end up removing the existing dam here. We'll bring in engineered fill, create a series of pools with these rocks, and of course it'll all conform within fish passage design criteria. So where are we now? Where are we going? So the diversion structure was identified in the Placer County Conservation Program. So NID is pursuing coverage under the PCCP for the applicable permits. It was identified in the PCCP as a project, so we're really hopeful to get coverage as a special participant. It's both a great opportunity for us to create partnership on this project, and it will help us streamline the permitting process. We just completed reviewing proposals for design on the fish passage, and we're actually going to be recommending a consultant to the board on September 22nd. So looking ahead, it's very common in all our projects that we look ahead to anticipate challenges. The big one for this particular project is we have a very aggressive schedule for a complete bid package. Design, as soon as we select a design firm, we're looking to have a bid package completed by March of next year, so March of 2022. And we're hoping that through our partnership, we'll have concise review of our design and concise comment periods. We've been keeping our eye on availability of Prop 1 grant funding. Early on in our process, we actually did receive some Prop 1 funds to be able to complete some fish studies and some hydrological reviews, water quality reviews and such. So we'll continue to keep our eye on that to see if we can get some assistance from the state to proceed with construction. And again, maintaining momentum is critical. We have a really good energy over here to get the project done. So I think that all the staff is very aware of making sure that they keep their attention focused to this project. Overall, for all our projects, we tend to keep an updated project web page. We'll definitely continue that with the Hemphill Diversion Project. We'll have to make sure that we engage with property owners early on for additional access to the site. Right now, we just have access that's through the north, so we're looking to pursue access from the south in order to help us with construction. And the big one is that we're targeting construction for next year, 2022. So again, it's really early on for us, but hopefully this kind of gave you a little information to what we're doing with the diversion structure. And at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions.
So, do you think it's going to be a really short time frame for the actual construction then?
Yes, we're hoping to have the construction period, all the in-stream water work done by the end of October of 2022.
And one more question, are you running into any difficulties getting your permitting? You mentioned it's a project in the PCCP.
Yeah, we actually haven't started any of the permitting yet. We're just doing a kickoff meeting this coming Friday to get a package together to submit to the PCCP for their consideration for us to participate as a special entity. As soon as we get to our 60% design level, that's when we'll start putting applications in for all our permitting.
Thanks, Tanya. It's a great project.
Yeah, it's a very exciting project. I'm looking forward to this one.
Tanya's
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Bill Templin. Tanya, I just wanted to let you know that you know, you're not the only one who has trouble with that anadromous word. And just anadromous, I've given presentations to grammar school kids, and one second grade class asked me not to use that word because the kids had trouble with it, so just use migratory. So
migratory. I will remember that. Migratory.
So, Tanya, do you have any numbers or descriptions of the benefit to the migratory fish?
Yes. So once we get the existing dam removed, it will open about 6 miles of the Auburn Ravine to migratory fish. We did do a fish study back in, I think it was 2015 and 2017, where they actually did fish counts. And that's available on our website. And I could give you a link that you can distribute to everybody if you want to take a look at that report.
Yeah, that would be great. So what is the access to the, how do the fish get to this point? They're coming from the Sac River, I think.
Yeah, they, my understanding is that they're coming from the Sac River up the East Canal into Auburn Ravine.
Are there any other diversions that will follow this one, or is this the most upstream?
The ones that are owned, this is the last one owned by NID in Auburn Ravine. I believe there are a couple other diversions, but I'm not familiar with those. I think PCWA may have one, and South Sutter Water District may have one.
All right. Well, I think it's a great model for any other kinds of diversions or barriers that there are. So I'm, you know, it's nice that you could tell us about it, and it's great that it can get done. Anything else? for Tanya? All right. Why don't we move on to Greg and PCCP?
Okay, good afternoon. I will try to share my screen here.
All right, bear with me, Greg. I'm going to make you presenter, and you should
Okay.
see a prompt pop up that allows you to share your screen.
There it is. Use this one, share. Okay, let me know if that popped up.
Looks good.
Good. We'll go from the beginning. Okay, hopefully you all can see that. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen. I'm Greg McKenzie, the Placer County Conservation Program Administrator. I actually wear two hats these days. As a county employee, the administrator of the conservation program, also executive director of a joint power agency that was formed to implement it, so Placer Conservation Authority. So I'll start out at a high level. Hopefully everybody has some familiarity with habitat conservation plans, permitting. I'll try to breeze through those as quickly as possible. And I know Greg has some areas and items that maybe we can pick up in questions and answers. I will also try to address, and if I don't, remind me, the couple of downstream diversions from hemp hill that we're hoping to work on through the implementation of the program. So the Placer County Conservation Program, as I mentioned, habitat conservation program, it's a federal habitat conservation program under the Endangered Species Act. It's also a state natural communities conservation plan through resources, California Department of Fish and Wildlife. It also, because it is watershed based and includes a county aquatic resources program, it's a watershed plan for the purposes of the State Water Board and the Regional Water Control Board. So it's the only one that I'm aware of, so the only multi-species habitat conservation plan, at least in the state, maybe in the nation, to not only include a whole host of other species, wetland programmatic permitting, but also salmonids. You know, there are some timber harvest plans that are pretty much focused on salmonids, but in this case, we have multiple other species. So it took us probably a couple extra years to make sure NOAA Fisheries, NIMS, was willing, ready, and able to participate with us in the program. And they stuck it out with us. It took quite a few trips to Silver Springs, Maryland, to the NOAA headquarters to make sure that happened, but we were able to ultimately be successful in including them. So focus of this presentation, I think, is kind of where Greg was going. I'll try to focus a little bit on the County Aquatic Resources Program as it relates to the watersheds of West Placer and how this is different than what we all have done historically in the past. So what is the Aquatic Resources Program? So in order to get a programmatic 404 permit from the Army Corps of Engineers and a programmatic 401 cert from the Water Quality Control Board, we had to have a program. And so we prepared, the county and the city adopted the County Aquatic Resources Program. So it is in place, and it provides the basis under which impacts to waters, wetlands, water quality will be addressed by the permittees under the program going forward into the future. Historically, you would simply, well, not simply, but you know, the county or the city would issue permits. Those permits had conditions or mitigation measures that would say, go get your 404 permit if you have impacts to waters of the U.S. 401, those sections of water quality, where the Corps doesn't take jurisdiction, you go to the water board for 401 or WDR purposes. So that's something that's new and different under this program. In order to permit things, we also had to have a way to mitigate for those impacts. And so we developed and adopted several years ago now the Western Placer County in lieu fee program, which is a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. EPA Water Board approved in lieu fee program for waters and wetlands of the state, the feds, Army Corps of Engineers, and also now we have a definition that classifies all waters, whether the state wants to take jurisdiction or the feds, the county will take jurisdiction over there regardless of what other agencies do, to say, yes, these are important resources. If you're going to impact those, you're going to mitigate those, you're also going to comply with all of our avoidance and minimization measures, mitigation measures through the fee program, best management practices, low impact development standards, a whole host of program requirements that we have. So that, in short, is the County Aquatic Resources Program, and how it ties into sections 401 and 404. So I mentioned a couple of the permittees under the program, which are the county, Placer County, but it's not just the county, it's also the city of Lincoln. It's also the Placer County Water Agency and the South Placer Regional Transportation Authority. So PCWA was interested in participating to get take coverage and programmatic wetland coverage for their projects, be it in their canal systems or new water infrastructure development. And the South Placer Regional Transportation Authority has some regional transportation improvements that will hopefully, maybe not, we'll see depending on funding, get funded over the next 50 years. Those projects will need permits, such as the widening of Highway 65, ultimate improvement of the Highway 65 I-80 interchange. That does have an anadromous stream under it, and so it has potential to impact some on it, so that's why they were interested just for one resource, but there's other vernal pools, other wetland types that they would need permits for ultimately to build those improvements. So for the land use authorities, city and the county in Western Placer County, any projects requiring permits, so you come forward with a grading permit and it's going to convert semi-natural or natural land cover types into urban or suburban land use types, you're subject to the conservation program now. It covers public infrastructure, so not only water and transportation, but county road projects that, road widening, road maintenance, things that might impact our waterways and species and habitat would be covered under the program. Because Placer County has a lot of rural residential fragmentation and growth in the foothills. And I'll show a map here in a minute of the plain area. We're covering rural residential development. And then relative to Hemp Hill and a whole long list of other unscreened diversions, barriers to salmonid migration, need to prepare, develop, design, build wetland and stream restoration projects. The program also covers restoration and management actions that are consistent with the program and implement the program. So the permitting history on the conservation program is long. It started about 20 years ago when a stakeholder committee was formed under the Placer Legacy program, and one of the implementing programs requirements basically said, hey, go prepare a habitat conservation plan and a natural communities conservation plan. It grew over the years into also picking up waters and wetlands. But after 20 years, we finally got through all of the SEQA review, all of the approval of the county, the city, PCWA, and Sparta all adopted the programs, negotiated an implementing agreement with all the state and federal agencies. Those things take a while. And so finally we landed on our permits last year from the state and federal agencies, starting with California Department of Fish and Wildlife In November, shortly followed thereafter by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we were able to get a 401 programmatic 401 from the Water Board. NOAA Fisheries finally followed up in March of this year with their incidental take coverage for their species to listed salmonid species. And then the Corps and the US EPA followed up with their programmatic 404 permits in May of this year. And so we have effectively been operating for 3-4 months now. Implementation of a large program like this is interesting. Trying to get it rolled out, trying to get city planning staff, engineering staff, county planning staff, engineering staff to implement it, because it is implemented at the local level. And so preparing guidance for implementation, user's guide, training manuals, because of COVID, lots of things online training these days to pull that all together to make sure everybody is implementing as they should be. So we're really just in the initial throes of a 50-year program. So yeah, 3-4 months in. So what does the conservation program include relative to geography? It includes Western Placer County, effectively from Highway 49 west, the Sutter County border, from Yuba County, Nevada County's border to the north, down to the Sacramento County line to the south. On the screen, you may see B3, B4, and might be hard to see, but a line that goes out into Sutter County. Why do we have those designated as an area where we would want to cover activities? Because those lines represent the extension of Raccoon Creek, formerly known as Coon Creek, going out into Sutter County, out to the Cross Canal, Eastside Canal, as well as Auburn Ravine and its connection out into Sutter County. So we have incidental take coverage, programmatic wetland permits to go out into Sutter County, assuming we can work with landowners, Sutter County, to remove barriers to salmonid migration. I think this is an area that Greg Bates wanted to focus on, which is, connectivity and cooperation between counties across the watershed. Obviously, my focus is Placer County, but with those permits, we're able to go out into Sutter County and do some restoration work, be it riparian, in-stream, spawning gravel type work, or removal of unscreened diversions and barriers, pumping. As I mentioned, Placer County, City of Lincoln, PCWA, South Placer Transportation. Why not Loomis, Rockland, Roseville, Auburn? Largely built out. Roseville's getting close to its urban limit lines, incorporated city limits. Rockland's very quickly approaching its ultimate build out. Auburn's kind of constrained by the county lines and its growth along Highway 49. So they're not participating in the programs, but they're colored green on this map because if any of those permittees, for instance, County Flood has a project in the city of Roseville, we can use our take coverage to cover that project. So it's something we were able to negotiate with agencies to make sure infrastructure, especially infrastructure, can be covered. So we don't cover all species. We cover 14 species that are either listed or potentially subject to listing in the future. The two that I've mentioned that we have particular concern with in our watersheds and streams, so fall run Chinook salmon, Central Valley steelhead are the two species that NIMS, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, have provided incidental take coverage in the whole list of species. Obviously, we have western pond turtle, red-legged frog, yellow-legged frog, the normal suite of vernal pool species, California black rail, little known species because it's so reclusive, but it needs the habitat of our watershed corridors and marshes that are associated with those in order to do their thing and survive and hopefully continue to exist. So a little bit more on the aquatic resources program, really designed around, because our species are interdependent with our waters and wetlands and streams. It would be one thing to just go tackle a habitat conservation plan and an NCCP, because of the interrelated nature of our species in and around wetlands. It was important to also cover 401 and 404. And so for any project in Western Placer County under the authority of any of the permittees, you would be required to get a CARP authorization. There's different levels of authorization that we can extend to projects. And for low level effects, we can actually extend our what's called a programmatic general permit and 401, programmatic 401 to those projects. If it exceeds that, you would still need to go visit with the Army Corps of Engineers under what's called a letter of permission, and most likely get a WDR from the water board. And there's standard permits that are streamlined. There's lots of different layers to the aquatic resource program in terms of permitting. But by design, if you avoid, minimize, and then ultimately mitigate, you get to participate in Western Placer County in the fee program and have your project's mitigation covered by that instead of going out to a mitigation bank or trying to figure out on your own what's called permittee responsible mitigation. So across Western Placer County, our major salmonid streams and their tribs, basically from the north, the Bear River, not a whole lot of growth and projects in and around that, but then you drop down to Raccoon Creek, an area mostly for conservation. For us, it's really the primary focal area for our reserve system, to build it, to connect it along our waterways, the foothills, to make sure all activities are covered. Down to Auburn Ravine, also an important watershed for us, and then Dry Creek on the south that goes up into Granite Bay, kind of parallels along Folsom Lake with Miners Ravine and other smaller tribs to Dry Creek out in that area, but does dip down through the western part of the county and then drops into Sacramento County. So with the County Aquatic Resources Program, the CARP requires that we actually do something a little bit different with our stream system. Historically, the county really regulated activities, as most counties do or cities, within the floodplain only. Our stream system definition now has changed to, it's not only the 100-year floodplain, but we have a long list of important streams, channels, areas that fall within that now broader definition of stream system. Much wider out in the western part of the county where the floodplains are wide, smaller as you go up and lose bed and bank up into the foothills. So a different paradigm. We could talk for a half hour on that, so I don't want to go too much further there, but a change, a shift in how we regulate activities in Western Placer County. So as I mentioned, and I know the water board's on, so I quickly, when I heard they were on, threw this slide in just to make sure we provide a little bit of coverage in terms of what is going on relative to the water board. This slide just speaks to really the programmatic 401 in that second bullet, which is if you have impacts to wetlands and waters that fall within the limits of a programmatic general permit, you also fall within the programmatic 401. So intended to be streamlined. Water board has reviewed our avoidance minimization mitigation measures, best management practice lids, that whole program. If projects comply with then they can fall under the programmatic general permit. So relative to Hemp Hill, you all were asking about other diversions, barriers. This is the principal barrier to salmon coming into western Placer County and Steelhead. It is the Coppin Dam, the location that's shown on the screen by the dashed line. It blocks Auburn Ravine further upstream, Coon Creek, Doty Ravine, all of those watersheds. So this is another, and in addition to Hemp Hill, this is the furthest downstream project that we've identified barrier to ultimately be removed. We do have permit coverage for it, incidental take coverage for it, wetland permit coverage for it, requires a design, but it is definitely a priority for removal in the course of our permits. Lots of different interest groups out here. You have Sutter County, you have a reclamation district, you have South Sutter Water District, you've got the rice growers around it. It will be a challenge just in getting all the divergent interests on the same page to do something with it, but it is definitely a goal. And this is one of the projects identified in the Raccoon Creek watershed assessment that we prepared right when I got to the county in about 2016 with the help of CVEC. There is another NID diversion that we're interested in working with them on in the long term. This is off of Doty. We would like to see this one ultimately removed, fixed. It's a little bit longer term. It's a priority over Hemp Hill. But we've actually, for this one, come up with a fish ladder, side channel fish ladder fix for it, should that be the right solution for it. But the goal with these was to show the agencies, by identifying these projects in the conservation program, providing them with permit coverage, it creates solutions, it creates facilitation utilizing the permits that have been granted to cover these projects. So for instance, from the Corps of Engineers, we have a regional general permit. So if we prepared a design for this, took that to the Corps and said, we have funds, be it grant funds or impact fees, here's a design, get that permitted, work with NID to remove this barrier, provide a solution to the barrier for fish. So another potential project there. I definitely want to leave time for questions. So just very quickly, lots of other stuff going on, you know, growing our staff, collecting fees, working on websites, working on GIS programs, working with NID on Hemp Hill to figure out, hey, can it be, because NID didn't participate in the PCP, can we now cover that program, because it is a priority for Placer County to have that barrier removed along with Coppin Dam downstream. So lots of work going on in the background. I was a staff of one for 6 years, and Lauren Clark, who preceded me, was a staff of one for the prior 15. We've actually got 2 more people now. We have a program biologist and a conservation planner on board to help. Is a good place to be, you know, 3-4 months into implementation without a whole lot of funding quite yet. So with that, maybe I will stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to you all for questions.
So, anybody have a question for Greg? I got a bunch, so.
And I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay. Well, a lot of good stuff that already answered a lot of questions. What drives, you mentioned these several projects, you know, for example, Coppin Dam and Doty Ravine diversion and Hemp Hill, and what's going to make those happen? Are those something that is mandated by the PCCP, or what's the, the path for that?
Yeah, so what we did in developing the cost and funding program for the conservation plan, so it's a 50-year program. Our permits are effectively valid for 50 years on the species side. We have a rolling 5-year programmatic permitting regime with the regulatory agencies on the rest. But we identified projects, we assigned funding to them, and so there are basically 2 courses of action in order to carry those out. We have the permits. That's the good news. We need designs in order to get designs. We need money in order to build those. We need money. So with agencies and with the other permittees, it's, well, we need to find a funding source. Show us the money in order to pull these off. And so that could be via grant funding. Prop 1 is mentioned as a source for Hemp Hill. There's other CDFW, NIMPS, annual funds that seem to be rolling out on a regular basis now that could be very helpful in pulling some of these off. Or we wait and collect fees from development projects that are impacting our streams, our stream system, and assign those to these projects. That could be a longer term solution for funding because it just takes a long time to collect enough fees from what tend to be smaller impacts, sewer line crossings, water line crossings, bridges, in order to carry off all these projects. So, hopefully it will be a combination of the two between, mitigation paying for some and state and federal grants paying for the others. We just got awarded $5.2 million out of the Section 6 funds from U.S. Department of Interior, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service down through CDFW for our first land conservation project to go acquire a big chunk of property in western Placer County. So that was great news. We've figured out how to get that on the ground here shortly, but yeah, encouraged by our ability to attract grant funds now having this program in place.
That's yeah, thanks for that answer. So just a couple other things. I'm curious about how a project falls. You talked a lot about how projects could fall under the plan, and I didn't see too much about. I've seen this map that is on the website about how certain areas are set aside as conservation areas and certain areas are not covered. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering about where a stream is in an area that isn't covered by, as isn't in a conservation area, I guess would be a way to say it. How far away from the stream would the coverage, the protection go? In other words, if, for instance, somebody were to propose a trail somewhere that might have some impact on a stream, would that stream fall under PCCP protection?
Yeah, potentially. So the maps are a little deceiving at that scale to cover western Placer County, let's call it 300,000 acres. To specifically map everything was a little bit of a challenge for our documents and document size limits that were imposed on us. So, if you're looking at conservation areas versus what's either already fragmented or potentially continue to be fragmented over the course of time, just somebody's rural residential home backing into a stream or trail. We cover those as a function of each stream being listed in our program. So the major streams have a variable setback starting all the way from the Sutter County line and then going east. And as they get wider and wider towards the west, the floodplain could be as big as the floodplain can be. So we have either numeric limits set on those. I think our biggest one is 600 feet on either side. So that's a pretty good swath, or the floodplain, whichever is greater. And then they narrow down as you go east. So we'll regulate pretty much any project that requires anything from a grading permit all the way up to a subdivision. You know, trails can sometimes require grading permits to comply with the program. And it's not to say that your trail can't go in there. If it goes in there, it triggers the program or avoidance minimization measures, and then ultimately fees. And so, you know, somewhat of a discouragement from going in there willy-nilly. If an improvement needs to be in there, it can go in there, but it needs to be aware of the fee program and the avoidance minimization measures that could be imposed. You know, we have lots of streams heading east, you know, through Granite Bay, east up into our foothills through lots of historic rural residential growth. Our goal is not to ignore those. Our goal is actually to get in and to acquire easements or fee title to lands along those streams to the extent possible.
I'm listening to a Zoom meeting right now. Buddy, where's your car? I just looked out and didn't see you. Oh my God.
Sounds like we have a little competition. So I don't know if that answers the question. Hopefully it does.
Can I ask a question?
Fire away.
Okay, this is Alton. So the audio was cutting out on me, but are there, you mentioned you've got 100-year floodplain that's protected, and but do you have any requirements for creek buffers that might be outside of the floodplain but near the creek where development is going to occur?
Yes, we do. So, you know, the floodplain was the way the county, most cities historically regulated activities during the floodplain. There were structural setbacks. But, you know, we really see our, what we now call the stream system, as the floodplain plus a variable width barrier or a variable width area, which could be greater than the floodplain. In a lot of cases it is. And so, yeah, it depends upon where you're at in the stream reach. But it's not just the stream system. We now have riparian buffer requirements as well as riparian mitigation. So if there's a riparian corridor associated with that stream, we either require that you avoid it and then stay out of another 50-foot buffer beyond it, or if you have something that absolutely has to be in there, a storm drain outfall, and you can't otherwise avoid minimization, you know, implement measures to impacting the stream system, there is a way, you know, a mechanism now to permit and mitigate for that. We'll use those funds in theory to then go, you know, acquire more of the stream system, upstream, downstream, use those fees coupled with grant funds to go restore, you know, stream system areas. And a lot of those in Western Placer are just, you know, scabby, star thistle invasive species covered uplands adjacent to, you know, certain streams. Others are, there's some good habitat out there to be preserved, but, you know, we really want to preserve, protect those corridors and then get in and restore them. You know, hopefully we'll get some rain this year, and that will help with some of our first projects that we want to put in the ground. Otherwise, you know, those projects tend to get kind of expensive having to provide supplemental water. But if, you know, we get back into hopefully a normal water regime, you know, it makes those projects a lot easier and restoration much more successful. So.
Yeah, Greg. Also, the lands, conservation lands that you acquire in fee title, who's going to manage and maintain those lands?
Sure. So I'll actually take a little bit of a step back. At the end of 50 years, the design is permits require a 47,300 acre reserve system. between streams, vernal pool grasslands, agricultural lands around rice. It's a very large reserve system. It also connects us in between, some of the existing mitigation banks, placer land trusts, preserves that they have in the county. Other entities, hold easements and fee title to lands around the western part of the county. So that's a big reserve system. The good news is the county has been in a good place tax-wise, property tax-wise, and we've already acquired 4,300 acres, I think. So we're about 10% of the way there, with only 3 to 4 months in. So to specifically answer your question, the land needs to either be owned by us or have a conservation easement on it by us or some other qualified third party. So preferably we own, manage, somebody has a conservation easement to help us provide oversight. But the bottom line is some qualified entity, the Placer Conservation Authority, let's just say Placer Land Trust, Rangeland Trust, Wildlife Heritage Foundation, somebody who is qualified to own and manage these lands has to be attached to it. So the ultimate protection for these lands, a conservation easement that's funded by an endowment that we're also funding at the same time. Each dollar that comes in, a percentage goes straight into that endowment for the next 50 years. We can't touch it for 50 years. It will grow over 50 years. And hopefully, like most investments, at the end of 50 years, it will protect the reserve system in perpetuity once we've completed our permit requirements. So.
How is that, Alta?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Oh, one other question that I have, and this is maybe the one that's most pertinent to this group, and we have it in other places on our agenda, is how, in the Dry Creek watershed, we've had Fall Run Chinook especially for, a long time. And in the last couple seasons, we haven't really seen too much of that. And it seems like you have the PCCP is including a lot of projects that are aimed at anadromous fish and so forth. Sounds like somebody's got their mic on, but so what happens there? Is there a mechanism for, we don't know why the fish are not coming these last few seasons. And I'm wondering, what does that do to the plan to preserve habitat and, restore areas for fish if there aren't any? Is there a way for the plan to interact? You mentioned some things about interacting, with Sutter County, and that was pretty interesting. In this case, it's the Dry Creek watershed, which goes into Sacramento County and Steelhead Creek, and I just wonder, is there a way to participate in activity that could promote fish returning through Sac County?
Yeah, most definitely. In the barrier removals, the restoration of spawning gravels, all that is great and fine in Placer County, but unless we can get fish from Sutter and Sacramento County into Placer County, that's not going to do us a whole lot of good. We do know historically fish have been in the streams, not in the streams, largely dependent upon and following our climatic cycles. And, we're tasked with keeping an eye on climate change as well and adaptively managing the reserve system, including the streams and restoration projects to make sure that we can maintain species populations and get salmon and steelhead in and out of the county. But there's definitely a part of this program which is yet to be figured out. We've done some work, as you know, with Auburn Ravine Watershed assessment. The most recent one I did with CBEC in 2016-ish, being the Raccoon Creek Watershed assessment, to look at, okay, where are the gaps in our knowledge of these fish and other species coming in and out of the county. The Coon Creek Watershed assessment basically said, hey, we need to go study where these species are occurring, where they're not occurring, and that requires some directive research that we have to fund through the program, be it through grant funds or fees. So for instance, we've had an MOU with William Jessup University. They've got I'll call it a foundation for lack of the right term at the moment, on that campus, who is interested in helping engage students in the environment. And so they, along with another environmental consultant, eCore Consulting here in Rockland, has been monitoring Raccoon Creek and Doty Ravine, a little bit less so on Auburn Ravine, utilizing eDNA to see, instead of having to go, use fish traps to catch fish to identify them, they're actually using now eDNA techniques to sample the column of the water to detect their DNA. Do we know they're there? We haven't seen them, or haven't, captured them or seen dead spawned out fish, but are they in that system? So that research is going on and producing good results, which is positive. But yeah, as you go down into the upper parts of Dry Creek into Miners Ravine, are there barriers there? Are there beaver dams preventing a particular year from going upstream? We know that happens on Doty Ravine all the time. As Greg knows, we've been working for many years trying to get the Cottonwood Dam removed out of Miners Ravine, kind of the part of Miners Ravine in Granite Bay as it parallels Folsom Lake, Auburn Folsom Road. That's a barrier to migration, spawning and out migration. So definitely want to see how we can remove that barrier, and then see what the results are with all those different factors between the water year, other natural impediments, other non-natural impediments to getting fish in and out. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of cooperation from downstream partners, but good news is we have a program, we have permits to go do it now, so now we need to go do it.
I have a question, Greg. This is Bill Templin.
Sure.
I had to step away for a minute, so you might have talked to this while I was gone, but have you dealt with any of the possible effects of the illegal campers downstream and their impact on anadromous fish moving upstream?
We have not downstream been keeping a careful eye on. We already have a preserve on Markham Ravine, right on the Sutter County, Placer County border. It's a 300-acre, our very first design build mitigation project along Markham Ravine. Actually, I have a picture of it in some later slides in my slide presentation. But that is a challenge. I see it. I spend lots of time on the American River Parkway. I see what's going on there. It's a concern for our area as well. How do we manage these preserves, our streams, to keep those unwanted attractive nuisances from occurring in along our streams? And yeah, it's definitely a concern. We have to write management plans for each of these preserves, and that's one of the things that is kind of an unknown is, how much is that going to cost? How much can we rely upon the sheriff versus a preserve manager to keep people out of these areas? Working with wardens, working with whoever it might be, it's another one of those things it's a challenge that we need to figure out. So I don't have a great answer for it right now, other than a lot of the preserves working on currently in the county don't have an issue because they're so removed from services and infrastructure. But as we move into the urban areas and start to, put conservation easements and restore properties, we don't want to see that burned down, much like the American River Parkway has experienced in the past few years.
Well, maybe Dylan has can contribute something to that, but I know there's been some illegal take on Dry Creek from what I've heard, and also the water quality changes due to not having facilities to dump their waste into is something that, salmon and steelhead are very sensitive to the quality of the water, and I'm thinking there could be a direct for that, and just trying to figure out if anybody's doing anything on that.
Yeah, since we're so early in implementation, we're not quite there yet, but as we develop this first management plan, we're going to be pulling from some of the experiences of others. Santa Clara's out in front of us. They've been implementing for, let's say, 10 years. East Contra Costa County for about the same amount. San Diego County, they do a presentation to our coalition annually about not only recreation impacts, but homeless impacts. And, I've been talking to them for many years now, trying to see what our future may hold and how they've been able to respond to it. Hopefully there's lessons learned there that we don't have to go invent the wheel again. Maybe we can learn from others to solve it here, hopefully.
Yeah, it's a rough one. So, are there any other questions that people want to ask? I wonder, Greg, if you would be, if you'll be able to stay on for a few minutes when we're discussing the fish a little bit more.
Yeah, I can definitely stay on.
That would be great. Really appreciate you doing this. Lots of great information.
My pleasure. And Greg Bates got my contact information. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
Sure.
And Greg Bates, you should see a prompt on your screen to share if you want to put the agenda back up.
All right.
On your desktop.
Yeah, well, of course, I don't see it.
Okay, I'm going to make myself presenter and then just switch right back to you. So that'll put it at the top of your window panels. Okay, give me a second here. Oh. Bear with me, you're on here. Okay, did that just pop up on your screen?
It says I'm the presenter.
Yeah, that's on your Surface or your desktop?
On my desktop.
That should be your desktop.
Yeah.
So are you seeing a prompt to show your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. We see it now. And,
okay,
I'm going back on mute.
Yeah, all right, thanks a lot. So we have essentially three sections to this agenda, and the second one is trying to figure out ways that we can cooperate on issues like regional things like fish traveling through different jurisdictions. And then the last one is a update on a bunch of projects from previous meetings that we've had, and we were sort of gathering a collection of different projects, and most people have given me a little synopsis of any new information that they have for it. And I hope people got a chance to look at that, because I think that kind of fits into the second topic, which is about collaboration. And I feel like maybe I left a topic off of item number 5, opportunities for collaboration. When you look at this big long list of trash-related projects, it kind of makes me wonder if there isn't some way to coordinate some of this stuff. So I know we have a lot of people here that are working on these projects, and I wondered if we could have a discussion about that. If anyone has any ideas, is it just fine to have everybody out there working on their own thing, or could we gain by somehow coordinating a little bit? So is it anybody that has any thoughts on that or questions about what the heck I'm trying to say? Or
Well, of course, I always have thoughts, Greg. This is Bill. And, we're all dealing with the same animals. And in many cases here, we're all dealing with a lot of homeless trash and stuff that's covering the bottom of the streams and preventing spawning gravels from being there. We're dealing with sedimentation and covering of spawning gravels from erosion and storm drain dumping. And so, yeah, there seems like we have a lot of common problems that we could coordinate on for solutions. And so we, like Greg was mentioning, we don't want to recreate the wheel.
so how would we do that? How would we, maybe if we looked at some of these projects, we have a variety of them. The draft horse project that's going on. I don't know has everyone seen that or heard about that? It's the first bullet under item 6. And Bill's project, where he's been going out weekly, the second Arcade Creek project. And then we've got this big project that is organized, I think, by the Water Quality Board. Rich Mull was on, at least. Been running that. What about those? Is there some way to make those things all work together, or do we all have to compete for volunteers and compete for agency attention? Maybe that's a question for some agency people. Are you still there, Rich?
Yeah, I'm still here. So our cleanup is done. So far, we've done it. This will be our 4th year. It's done. It's a collaborative. We just kind of organize it. It's a collaborative group effort among both the city and the park rangers and the irrigation districts to clean up Steelhead Creek. We don't really use volunteers per se, except for Dr. Brady, who's participated for years, and Crystal Tobias. Both of them have kind of worked with us. But other than that, we don't typically utilize volunteers, and for mostly safety reasons, to be honest. And we kind of get in and get out. We get a fair amount cleaned up. It's been kind of a challenge during COVID, frankly, because we can't use heavy equipment as much as we'd like to. So we're having to do it a little bit different by passing out trash bags and picking up the trash bags. And then we are trying to get rid of abandoned camps, which is very helpful. It doesn't really give us the tonnage that we'd like to see, but it still goes in and cleans up a lot of areas. So we're still continuing to move forward with it despite COVID and despite all the different limitations we have right now. So, I would love to collaborate more. I think it makes sense. I think we are, you're absolutely right. We're all working on the same issues, and we're trying to make it work. We just have very limited resources that we can deploy. And it just kind of, but I think we'd be happy on cleanups, if possible. We'd be happy to at least look at other opportunities. I think Adam's on the call, and I don't want to overspeak, but I think we always want to work on collaborative efforts, and Steelhead Creek is just one of them we've done every year. So we would certainly be interested in collaborating to the extent we can with others, particularly in Steelhead where we're already working. And one of the things I wanted to mention too for Steelhead is last year, we also came in after the cleanup, and our American River Flood Control came in and removed another big barrier that we identified during the cleanup that Dr. Brady identified. And we came in after the fact and actually cleaned that up too. So, and it was a debris dam of a lot of wood and a bunch of other stuff that was just creating all kinds of well, it's probably fish passage issues, but other things too. And so we cleaned that up. Also, we worked with Fish and Wildlife on that. So there's a lot going on, but the caveat and the bad part is we're only cleaning up a very small stretch of Steelhead Creek. And so we're trying to keep that stretch clean. But obviously, if we went upstream or we went downstream, we're going to see additional issues. So we're happy to try and collaborate wherever possible.
And Greg, if I might add something, is that okay at this time?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Bob Hollis. I mentioned who I am and what we do early as in the introductions, but specifically related to this list, my company Mobius developed the app that's being used for the ARB Stewardship and Citizen Science Project for KCB. Cecile Carson's the contact point for that with KCB, but that app can be used for anything, anywhere. And so when I think of the situation we're looking at with these areas, when we think of water, of course, these county lines and things are just artificial lines on a map. They mean nothing. So we need to know what's happening in every part of the watershed to know why things are happening in other parts of the watershed. So whether it's a citizen science project where we want to have people collecting water samples and collecting, pollutant information and entering that in an app on any smartphone, or tracing source debris back through storm drains and some of the work that's already planned to be done, that can be done throughout the whole region pretty easily, just adapting the current app. So if you have ideas for that could allow us to cross-collaborate through a central database, or even get the data to whoever needs to have the data with the permissions of the people involved, of course, talk with Cecile, and we have the technology to make it happen pretty easily and pretty inexpensively.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Bob. That's a good talk on the stewardship project. So I guess there's not a ready answer to the question I'm asking. I'm just thinking that our local governments are involved in more than one of these things a lot of times, and so it seems to be begging for some sort of systematic treatment. It seems like right now we're overwhelmed by this huge trash problem, and people are just scrambling to try and do whatever they can do. And it's just not really, as Rich mentioned, it's a small section of Steelhead Creek that they're working on, and we have it in any number of creeks in all throughout the region, which I think is a.
Hi, Greg. This is Lisa Moretti from City of Sac, and I definitely agree with you. I think I'm speaking for myself personally, looking at the trash issue, that it feels overwhelming. And I've been seeing so many people that just have engaged in this issue within our community, and amazed at the citizens that are able to step up. And I would say that sitting at the city, I don't always see exactly where we can best support our citizens. And I've been thinking about this specifically because there's a new Caltrans grant called Clean California. that Caltrans is trying to push resources out to local agencies to deal with litter abatement and beautification issues. And I've been kind of brainstorming and reaching out. I think Alta, maybe Jeanette Huddleston and Jessica might have reached out to you, Alta, about our public outreach for trash. But we're kind of looking, I'm personally looking back at nonprofits or citizens who are doing this work and saying, in what ways could we better support you if we could get the money to support you? And that's always been our gap. Is one, we don't have the resources to clean up litter. We do low flow channel cleanups is what we do primarily right now. And the city is also very worried about liability. So we're always worried about, you know, liability of working with citizens and dealing with the health and safety of what we all know when you go out to these sites and you encounter. But if we could do it more of finding out the needs of people who are already engaging and doing the work, my question back is, where could we support? I was talking to somebody the other day that said, like, maybe having a shed of resources for pickup that people could check out, you know, pickers and buckets, just having, you know, some place that would be centralized to grab those things and return them back to. Or maybe it's about having a public outreach campaign to getting volunteers involved, and we could then kind of organize and saying, okay, how many people do you need? And, you know, having a website that helps do that. Like I've seen Beautify San Jose, they've acted as a centralized organization that says, okay, here's all our problem areas. We're kind of going to put things on a schedule and get volunteers in different areas. So I'm kind of kicking it back to you guys and wondering if we had money and could go after a grant like that, what kind of resources would help you all do what amazing work you're doing even better?
It's a great question.
Well, I have an answer that I deal with all the time. Bill Templin again. You know, I've cleaned up reaches of Arcade Creek and taken the stuff to the dump, gone back to the same reach after I go to the dump to take an after picture, and I see people dumping stuff in the creek that we just cleaned up. And that seems to be what a lot of our volunteers are frustrated about, is that, you know, we clean it up, it gets messed up again, and it's a repeat. Making progress. You know, I have to admit, I think we're making some big progress and taking a lot of the heavy stuff out. Roland Brady and his efforts have really helped us on Arcade Creek, as well as I think all the work they're doing down in Steelhead Creek. But that's the most disappointing thing, I think, for the volunteers I see, is that the problem just is recurring and it's never ending. There has to be a solution to the problem dealing with the source. And I know I was really impressed when the regional board stepped up a couple of years ago on Steelhead Creek and organized all the different interagency groups and started really cleaning up that work that Rich was talking about. But I've really been out of the picture down there a bit and busy on Arcade Creek and kind of more focused. So I don't know, maybe Adam could speak up if he's still with us. And I'm thinking a regional effort of some sort, and that seemed to work when a couple of years ago that things were really happening. Then the other thing, Greg, I was thinking the American River Basin Collaborative, regional groups like that, and RWA, I was thinking that they were the coordinative factions that would help us all work together.
Yeah, and I think that's what VFWC, Valley Foothill, was formed to do. And, you know, I think one problem that we've run up against is finding funding to have people do that kind of work. It seems to be easier to get funding for things like tools and concrete things, plants, than it is to pay somebody to organize a website, or to develop a website to organize projects. So I don't know how that Beautify San Jose is a new one to me, and that would be interesting to take a look at that. But I don't think that, I mean, as long as I've been doing this, I think one of the problems for nonprofits is that a lot of times they are seen as a philanthropic free activity, and but you can only go so far with volunteers, especially volunteers that need to have a certain expertise, like
Greg, if we need a website for this, it's an important topic, I think, and I'd be happy to do it at no cost.
Well, that just like that, huh? That's
Yep. I've been doing it
solved.
for 20 years for organizations like this everywhere, and until I had to start charging money, I was doing all of it for free for about 6 years. So this is a worthwhile effort. If that's an issue, I won't let it get in the way. So I'll provide free hosting on either solar or wind-powered servers based in California, and we can talk about the specs that are needed, and I'll knock it out.
Well, that's pretty exciting. Does that seem like something that, how about some other people that are working on this? We don't have all people here. We have Bill, we have Alta, not sure off the top of my head who else is here that's doing this kind of work.
Greg, this is Randy Smith. Is my mic on?
Yeah.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
I didn't realize I could speak. I'm up in Lake Tahoe right now doing some same work up in watersheds that are coming down to Lake Tahoe. But I've worked with Bill Templin a great deal on Arcade Creek and also down Steelhead Creek with Roland Brady. I was really excited to hear what you were proposing and trying to get this collaborative, get us together collaboratively. And I'm really excited to hear what Bob is saying about providing a website, and also what Lisa was saying about potential Caltrans grants and everything. This is music to my ears.
I live in the other end of the Caldor fire, and am grateful for the work you're doing up there, and looking forward to contributing to everybody's efforts here. And what I'd suggest is we form a small committee for input. Mostly all I need, the structural stuff, the technical stuff, any features you've ever seen anywhere, I can do in my sleep. No problem, we'll get it done. But what I'll need the most is the input from this group on what things you would like to include, what types of features you'd like to include. And design, we can make it look any way we want it to. But if we can form a committee of people who might be interested in talking about this in more detail, that bring a diverse perspective from all the different components that might be important to have in the website, that's basically all I need to create the roadmap. And then I can literally knock it out while watching football games on Sunday, and then come back around for a round of edits and all that before we go live. And just in case things you'll think about later, I do a lot of publicly funded work. So I go through a full VPAT analysis internally, which is the highest compliance possible for Section 508 and ADA and all the California privacy. And I teach cybersecurity classes and make sure the websites are as hardened as they can be. So anyway, I'm ready to go.
Well, that's amazing.
Thanks, Bob. And I've been meaning to reach out to the program manager at Beautify San Jose to see how they coordinate volunteers and deploy people to different areas and how they kind of do that, because they do like this kind of citywide call for volunteers and then try to match people up with events and cleanup areas.
So the program itself is maintained by probably some city employees.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, so the website is, it is a major factor, and it's a marvelous offer from Bob. And it will still take somebody a lot of time to put it together. It would be, I know other places have done other things that are similar, and maybe not about trash, but about other things. And we have several other things that we could do. So I wonder if there's a way to develop some agreement that would allow local government employees to put some time into a project like that. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
And I would just add even just content, like if each participating stakeholder at this level that we're talking about that would be content contributors, we could even start with something that's a framework that I could have up by Monday that has a section where each person could post as links to their Facebook pages and resources. And then we can have a public area where somebody creates posts of content related to what we do or just a description of what's going on. And I can make it really simple for people to add content if we have a group of authorized people to do that. And then as it's added, it automatically organizes itself on the website where it's supposed to go. So I can put together an overall structure and framework with a list of features by Monday that we could distribute for review. And anybody who sees another feature that might be needed, let me know. And I'll structure it in a way that takes minimal, just a little bit of input from everybody, 10 minutes a week, keeps the whole website totally updated all the time. And
I'd love to be a part of that, Bob. Thank you.
Hey, fantastic. Thank you. Then anybody else, just put your name in the chat or send a note to Greg, and I'll coordinate through him primarily, and we can go forward when everybody's ready. But I'll have a site up for us to start working with by Monday and just have it in front. So we have a.
This is Randy Smith again. I'm just on my cell phone up here at Tahoe. I don't have my computer capability with me. If you could add my name and contact information to that list of joining with this, please.
Yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
do that.
Appreciate it.
Or just send me an email, Randy.
Okay, Greg.
This is Alta.
Hi, Alta.
Hi. The audio keeps cutting out on me, but so I don't know if I'm catching everything. On creekweek.net, we list various groups that are doing cleanups and resources for people who want to just get out there and do something. And one of the, and I've reported on some of those groups, and there's one now, Sacramento Picks It Up, Facebook group, and they're doing a really good job of documenting their cleanups. And it's like somebody will just say they want to do a cleanup the next day at a certain spot. They'd like some help if somebody can come help them, and they're posting pictures and comments and giving information on how to report things to the various jurisdictions. But it's similar to the Elk Grove anti-trash community cleanup, but I think they've even taken it one level higher. And I think that it's a really good model for how to help people just do something and not have to register in advance and sign a waiver. That just turns people off. So I would say we should look at that and look at our creekweek.net website to see the various resources I've listed. Sacramento Stormwater Quality Partnership has, Lisa, what do you call it? What?
It's on beriverfriendly.net. But Alta, I think your website has a ton of great resources. And then, yeah, Sacramento picks it up, has started to form that community to try to, connect different people who care about this issue. And I think if we had work potentially with Sacramento picks it up to have a website that connects volunteers and posts about events and connects people. But on that Sacramento picks it up, the biggest questions are, how to work with local agencies, and it's just so complicated, right? So it's like, okay, if you do a cleanup in the city of Sacramento, you can report it after you finish and report it through the 311 app. And then, the county has a different reporting. And then if you want to work with the parks districts or the American River Foundation, or there's just so many agencies. So potentially connecting volunteers and agencies and events, I think would be a wonderful way of kind of bridging some of the needs out there. At least that's what I've been thinking about.
Yeah, and that's what I try to do when I get inquiries, and then on the Creek Week website. And so we're talking about the trash issue, but there's so much more that we should be working on, restoration projects, and I don't know. I think it's I'm glad we're talking about it, but I think we need to take a broad view too on how we can collaborate on other issues besides the camping and trash issue.
And a couple of those are on the agenda. By the
And
way,
I don't have any good ideas.
yeah, and by the way, Bob has set up the website so that I can just revise the agenda as it gets closer to the meeting. So the agenda that I sent out is outdated by now, and if you care to, you can go to the website and just look at what's up there, and it'll just be have new information, because people will send stuff after the agenda is done, and then if I can go ahead and put it back into the agenda, and then you could find it there whenever you want to go look. So a lot of people on the agenda that they are looking at in their office or wherever they are may not have the thing about Sacramento picks it up, but there is an entry on the current agenda that's on the website about it, with a Facebook link if anyone wanted to go and look at that. Yeah, some of the other, going back to Alta's point about the broader view of collaboration, we had several, the fish issue seems to be one, and we sort of touched on it a little bit when Greg McKenzie was talking and try to answer whether or not it's possible for one jurisdiction like Placer County and their PCCP to collaborate with Sac County and City of Sac when we're not seeing fish. And there could be lots of reasons, but as far as I can tell, I don't know who's looking at this issue. We have state agencies, and some of those are on, or Dylan, and I think somebody from DWR was on. So, it seems to me that those are worthy of some kind of action. And if people can't step outside of their own program, to see what's going on in the next part of the region, those things don't get done.
Well, this is Bill again. Bob, on your website, one issue that keeps coming back to my mind is it would be nice to have something up front on the website that would show status of success stories on things that are being done regarding these different issues, the fisheries, the trash, sources of trash. I know, I think it was mentioned on this on the agenda that KCB, I think that's the study that Christine Flowers came to visit Arcade Creek, and that's one of the sites of the 4 or 6 sites that she was talking about, doing source identification of the storm drain contents and how much of it makes it into the creek. Just up front on the website, if you could have a status report on the results of these surveys. It'd be great to see this. I know Greg I haven't seen much as far as survey results because we haven't seen much fisheries, but to make that apparent that, in Dry Creek over the years, there's been a significant fishery there. We've only identified 8 salmon in Arcade Creek, and that was back in 15 and 16. I know Greg's work started probably before 2005, and they were doing surveys. I was helping with those volunteer surveys, and that was a success story to just get an idea that these fish have used our streams. And then I haven't heard recently, I know the regional board had contracted to do a DNA study. Again, this would be to identify the source of E. coli. I don't know if the study's done yet or what, but if we had a central website source like what we're talking about developing here, or you're talking about developing, Bob, that would show us consistent results of these different success stories, that would really be helpful to me to share with volunteers.
Absolutely. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we developed that app that's being used. And so that's through our ArcGIS Esri account. And we can render the maps and the results of any of those surveys anywhere on any website. So we haven't talked to the other stakeholders about where they're okay with that being rendered. But as long as we have approval from the people who are directly involved in the grant and that sort of thing, and I think Department of Water Resources is directly involved, with the permission of all other stakeholders, it's easy to do technically in terms of rendering that exact data. From the other perspective of putting up all the success stories, absolutely. And once we've had a committee discussion around the best way to have the optimum security plus ease of posting, it could be as simple as I give each person who's allowed to post a unique page with a form with a single password they just type in, and they can type something and hit submit, and it would come into the website and go exactly where it's supposed to go based on the category they select. So we could call it front page news or something. And then we can have one person that just goes through once a week and vets it, say Greg, to make sure we didn't get spam or something like that. And then once he hits OK, that system can then send it out into unlimited newsletters for each community, post to unlimited social media. We're using this exact same system for the Department of Recycling, for Cal Recycle, with their 37 RMDZs, Recycling Market Development Zones. So it's a communication system they paid us to build out for them. But I'm basically going to take the same system and donate the use of it for this project for free if it's appropriate. And if not, I'll just take the components that work well and integrate those into our project to make it easy for multiple people to collaborate in one setting, without needing a lot of coordination among people other than what we're going to do. And we can integrate really videos. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm getting excited. I don't know if you can tell.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about all the things we could do with it even as we talk. And I'll send it, but I'm not going to do anything unilaterally. I'm going to, once we have our committee formed, I'll make a list of things. I'll work through Greg and the committee, review them together, and then we'll send out some information to the whole group for additional input. and keep working towards a launch date, which is going to be dependent on how quickly people can respond and want to work on it. If I had all the content we needed, I could have it all up by Monday. But that's the easy part. The content's the part that we need to have some discussion.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's some content in, in the agenda and notes that we generate from this meeting.
Sure. And the way we're doing these, to clarify or elaborate on what Greg said earlier, we were getting a lot of a situation where he has an agenda ready, and then he sends that to me and I post it. And then he gets an update, so he sends that to me and I post it. And so what we did instead, I just made it a Google Doc that he could go in and keep editing at any time. And I have a link to the Google Doc on the website. And so Google Docs can also be embedded in any website. So we can have that constantly being live as well. I try to build systems out that are simple to use and you don't have to do any redundancies. So you can post something or do something in one place and it's going to populate every platform and every place it's supposed to be populated without having to go in and say post it here and then add a link here and then say something about it here. We can do all that in like one step. But we'll work all that through committee. I don't want to take up all of our time here.
Yeah. So I think we are getting, we've done a lot, and I think maybe we've done, as much as we really need to do all at one bite. I would like to go back to this fish spawning run issue. It seems like a really serious thing to people like Bill and me and Randy that have been working on these fish runs for literally decades, and not to see fish for the last 2 seasons, and not really seeing carcasses like there's something that's killing them. It's kind of mysterious, and it does cross jurisdictions. And in our case, in Dry Creek, it's only 2 really, Sac County and Placer County. And I think, from what I understand, maybe in the Auburn Ravine and Raccoon Creek, it would only be Sutter and Placer. I think we really need to find a way to take note of this. Sometimes people think that these little creeks are not really that worthwhile. And I'm not a fish biologist, but I've talked with a lot of them over the years, and they think that it's that having the diversity is important. That if you have a few fish in a small creek, that's worth a lot when you have a major disaster on a big creek. And having a few fish on a lot of small creeks is worth working toward. And that's what we've had, but it seems like we might be losing it, and we don't know why. I think we need to, I personally think that should be a big issue for us. And I don't have a good answer. I know we've tried to work with various agencies, and we haven't been able to come up with a way to address this question. And then the other things that we talked about, this drone idea and how we might use drones to identify parameters and issues and problems in our whole area. And then we're always talking about the conferences. So these are things that are ongoing, and the fish run is coming right up. I mean, it's next month potentially, and we're going to have to figure out some way to find out why the fish aren't coming back if they don't come back this year.
Well, Greg, I have another. This is Bill.
Yeah.
Just real.
Okay, I think it's Bill and then Alta. Is that what I heard?
Then me, after you, Bill.
Okay. Yeah. What most people don't understand
Bill.
what most people don't understand about anadromous fish is how do they get up there? And in working with Harry, this conversation too, with Trout Unlimited, he's helped me with the data that we've had for temperature loggers for the last 3 years on Arcade Creek. And I've been putting together, in response to our discussion, the hydrographs from the data that USGS gauged at Del Paso Heights, which is now defunct as of last fall, unfortunately. But since 2015 through this last year, I've got like 6 plots of the hydrograph showing the peaks. And one of the explanations for why we're not seeing fish is, of course, the drought. And people don't understand that unless they can see the graphs. And if we're able to put that up on the website, Bob, it's a pretty telling story when you see the peaks, the number of peaks, and the frequency of peaks that we've had in previous years. And I think there's a direct correlation between salmon rainfall and steelhead and rainfall, but that would be helpful, So if we're looking at why we're not seeing the fish, well, water is certainly one of the things. Water quality is certainly another one of the things. But so just nailing down the suspected causes of not seeing fish in our creeks would include the hydrographs, I think. Being a hydrologist with the USGS for 30 years, I've got some experience in that. But you can pull that data right off the website. Sept County also has the flood alert network now that I'm hoping to be able to use that set of data to replace the data we've been using from USGS. But those show peaks, and anadromous fish come up during the peaks, even if they are flashy peaks. So that's identifying causes of the decline, Greg. Water in the creeks is one of the big stories. Of course, you guys have it lucky. You've got a lot of water coming down BCWA. We don't have that Arcade Creek. Okay, so Alta, you're next.
I'm just thinking the new website we're talking about, and what Greg was saying about our big concerns about where are the fish and the importance of these smaller populations in the creeks. Maybe we could make that be the centerpiece of the website. We're going to be talking a lot about trash and volunteers and all of that, but maybe like it's a mystery, and the emphasis is on the wildlife, especially the fish and the habitat. Make it be real pretty and include the benefits of this creek system that we have. Really highlight that as best we can. Don't lose that.
Right. And to go back to Bill's comment about hydrological reports, I think that's great, Bill. The more science we can include, the better. And if you happen to have any geocoding locations for that, we can also map it and show what that looks like on a GIS system. And Alta, I agree. I was fortunate enough to take some graduate courses at Harvard with some very brilliant environmental professors, and they talked about the importance of emphasizing the charismatic megafauna to get the appeal of the public. And going back to just basic sales, you have to engage people emotionally to get them to take an action. And so showing pictures of the beautiful fish and talking about why they might not be there anymore if people don't take action, and what can happen if they do take action, and showing both sides of it can really be appealing and draw people in. So I'd love to collaborate with you on any type of content related to that. Make it so.
Well, it's an exciting discussion, and I hope we can follow up on it. And if anybody is interested in, we'll send the Bob's product that he's talking about out, and we hope you can look at it and send a comment back, and maybe see if we can find a way for a lot of different individuals to contribute some content to it.
This is Randy Smith again. Bob, is there a possibility we could meet with you, perhaps even this weekend, to help share ideas?
Yeah, I host Zoom meetings and these types of meetings multiple times a day. And I don't have anything on my agenda this weekend. So if people wanted to meet that soon, I'd be happy to. Otherwise, we could send out a doodle and see what works for the most of the people who want to be involved.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested in participating this weekend if you wanted to do that. If people wanted to do that, to help get this thing started.
I'm ready to go too. If people who want to be on the committee are ready to go, I'm ready to go.
I'm available on Sunday. This is Bill. The other thing, since you mentioned GIS, Bob, I know one of the issues I push, with the loss of habitat above Folsom, 17 miles of just the main fork of Arcade Creek is available as spawning habitat if we can open it up. And then there's all kinds of extra tributaries, Crow Creek and others. I'm not sure how long Dry Creek is, but that's a significant contribution if we can then do something with the just the watersheds and just point out how many miles of potential spawning habitat these little urban creeks could provide, that are the ones that aren't damp. We've got Magpie Creek, but that's in a pumping plant at the end. We've got Morrison Creek and some of these others, but they don't go directly to the river. So just the Dry Creek and Arcade Creek alone provide a significant number of miles of spawning habitat that I think we need to start emphasizing more.
Yeah, and Alta did something like that in a lot of the creeks with the creek cleanups. But as I've thought from the beginning, we can do it with anything from temperatures to chemical readings, spawning habitat, any metric that you want to measure that has anything to do with geography, we can do. All it has to do is be included in the survey. When people were out there with a mobile app or their phone or whatever, they just pull it up. And if they're taking readings with a hand kit on temperatures or something like that, they just enter the temperature in and it geocodes it at that point. And so as people are doing it all over the region, it can populate a map automatically or be a hidden map, whatever it needs to be considered, depending on the project. And you can look at that map and see what's going on region wide and start to identify patterns.
So sounds like there's a lot of possibilities that we could talk about at the committee or at the next meeting.
Yeah.
So if
but I'm happy to go forward this Sunday. I just don't want to leave other people out and get started without them if they're not ready yet.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do that. I think maybe it'd be. I think I'd like to see what you're talking about on Monday and send that out and go from there. It'd be me.
Okay. That makes sense to me too. I'll get a foundation down and people can think about this over the weekend and we can send out a link. I'll do it in a Google Doc also and add to it. I can make everybody editors if we want to, or just commenters or whatever. But we'll make it a very collaborative process because the more input we get from all the professionals like you in the field looking at it from different angles, the more comprehensive a website we'll have and the more useful it'll be to everybody.
Bob, this is Randy again. If there's a time this Sunday when you would advise that Bill Templin, myself, and anyone else that's in the group here would like to meet with you, let us know.
Okay, I'll send out an invitation if you like, maybe 10 a.m. or wait, I got to see what time the Steelers play. Or else I won't be paying attention. Let me look at that and I'll send you a text or I'll send an email out with a Zoom
link.
Great.
Great.
If Greg's ready for us
Thank
to
you.
get started. Okay.
So I think we should move on towards closing this meeting. The only other thing that I would like to do is just, and I can't go through all of these projects, but we've got a lot of information on the.
We're hearing background noise from somebody typing, probably a phone caller that doesn't realize their mic's open.
It's Randy, probably.
It's not me this time.
Okay, I'm going back on mute.
I heard it too.
So I guess I should ask, is there anything on any of these projects that somebody's just burning to tell us about or to ask about? We can't let everybody talk about their projects, but we have a lot of information here. And so if somebody has a big question about any of them or wants to clarify something, this would be a time to do that.
Greg, thank you for doing this. I think it's just so helpful to have these updates and reminders of all these projects, and just reading through them, it might help us see some collaborative opportunities. And so it's just a really nice effort that I appreciate greatly.
Thank you. Okay. So I think, is there anything that anybody else we have these meetings quarterly, and the next one would be scheduled for it looks like December 16th, and which is pretty close to the holidays, but that's when people chose to do it. So, and I also put down some proposed dates for next year, 2022. You might take a look at those dates and see if there's any reason why they don't work. I know that we have a conflict with one other group, which is the weed management area, which also meets on the third Thursday. I don't know how much overlap. I know there's a few people that overlap both meetings that we miss sometimes. But if you have, if you know, we might want to take a look at that meeting schedule next time and decide whether or not we're going to do it. So, hey, Danny, I'm on. So if there's nothing else, I think we're done. Okay, great meeting. Wonderful to have all you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. And I'll have a recording up probably by this time tomorrow on the website.
Oh, great.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.